Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I continue talking about development of integration solutions with use of logic apps. And today I want to talk about monitoring of your solutions. Imagine that you have just implemented a large integration solution with dozens of workflows. You did a hard job and your solution went through the testing and finally deployed into the production environment and starts working in production. Your development work is over and now your solution transitions to the next phase where the monitoring work is the most important. Your logic apps, your workflows work well, at least you think so. The data is transferred, but now the question is, are there any errors in the data transfers? So in this phase, the most important thing is to have a good insight into your solution, to get as much as possible information about transfers of the data. Are there any errors? And there will definitely be errors. The errors that may occur due to bugs in the solution, problems in the solution, or due to errors in data, which may happen. And you have to have possibility to quickly react to these situations and to fix the problems. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up the monitoring of your logic apps, and you will get a good insight into processes running in your integration solution. So let's get started. I have prepared a very simple, really simple logic app, and a logic app which will receive requests, HTTP requests. But let's get started with a simple diagram which depicts the solution I will be using for demonstration. I have a logic app with an HTTP trigger. This will accept JSON data from a client. This logic app calls, in this diagram, it's just an application or endpoint. In my case, this endpoint is implemented with use of another logic app with HTTP trigger for simplicity. Then I will use Log Analytics workspace, which will be used by the dashboard, where on the dashboard I will place the logic app management solution component. So I will go through these elements and I will show how simple it is to display information on runnings of a logic app, and how it's simple to see if any errors occur during data transfers. I have a resource group with 2 logic apps, and this one, the test endpoint, will be used as an endpoint which will throw an error in my test. So as you see, it's extremely simple, just an HTTP trigger and the HTTP response. Here I want to add one thing. I want to add a JSON schema validation in this trigger. So for my test, I'll be using a JSON object which will simulate creation of a new customer. So the data in this JSON will be data for a new customer. And in this window for creation of JSON schema, I'm able to use a sample of data. The data defines the identification of the customer plus address information and the contact information. So I click done and the trigger generates the schema for me here. One thing to add is I want to make some elements of this data schema mandatory. Okay, nothing more required for this logic app, so I save it. Next I will go to the logic app which will call the endpoint, and I have here also the HTTP trigger and the response. I need just to add an HTTP action for calling the endpoint. And here I will need the URL of the endpoint logic app. So let's open another window and get this logic app HTTP trigger details. This URL is the URL which we can use to send data to this logic app. So I copy this, place it in here. Here it is. Yeah, the method. I'm going to use post, and let's check it here. Yes, the post is specified in the endpoint logic app. So I use post, save it. And now I'm ready to set up monitoring of my logic app. If we go to the diagram, next step is to create the log analytics workspace. So I go to the resource group and I create a new Azure resource. I have the log analytics workspace here. Create. So I have to specify the subscription here. I have only one subscription, but in your case there may be a list of subscriptions. So be careful to choose the right one. The resource group. So I want this log analytics workspace be located in my demonstration resource group, but you choose depending on your requirements. Next is the name and the region. That's it. The process is pretty quick and the workspace is created. Yes, so we can check it in the resource group. Next, I will monitor the logic app from the dashboard. So I need to create a new dashboard. So let's do it. I can go to dashboards from the homepage of the portal. And you always have my dashboard, the private dashboard which is created by default for any user. But I will create a new one. Here you have several options to choose from. A dashboard with a set of elements created by the template. So yeah, you have these templates to inherit your dashboard from. And in most cases, I, for instance, use this one, Application Insights, and this will create a dashboard with all the metrics displayed from the Application Insights. But for simplicity, I will go and create an empty one, just because I want to focus on particular element to be created on the dashboard. So I've got a new dashboard. Next step is to create Logic Apps Management. And I go to the resource group again and click on Create button. Here I will choose Logic Apps Management Solution. And for creation of the Logic App Management, you again have to specify the subscription, your resource group, and the existing log analytics workspace, which we have created at the previous step. Nothing more is required. Okay, so Logic Apps Management is created. I'm gonna refresh it, and here it is. And this type of resource is called solution, is used to display the monitoring information about Logic Apps work. So by clicking on View Summary, we are transferred to these two tiles. And the point is that instead of using these tiles from here, I'm gonna pin it to the dashboard. And then I go to the dashboard, and as we see, it's placed in the dashboard. Let's refresh. It doesn't show anything at the moment because we need to take a next step, which will be to connect my Logic app to the Log Analytics workspace. So I'm going to go to Monitoring, diagnostic settings. Here I click add diagnostic settings. I will choose all logs here in types of logs. And then in the destination details, you can choose from 4 options where to send this data. And I want to send this data to Log Analytics Workspace. So when I choose this, it lets you choose the subscription again and the Log Analytics Workspace. And I will choose this one, which was created for this demo. And I need to give a name. So I usually use something like diagnostic settings and then some meaningful name. And I click on the save button. Okay, the diagnostic settings connection is created, and this gives us a connection of the Logic app to the Log Analytics Workspace to be able to display this data in the dashboard. So I will try to refresh. And now it shows runs of the Logic apps connected to the Log Analytics Workspace. So next step is to try it out. For making HTTP requests, I like using Visual Studio Code with installed Thunder client extension. I will need to have the URL to my Logic app. So let's go back and open the designer. And by opening the HTTP trigger, we have the URL now to the main Logic app, which will accept a request from the client. So let's get back to the Visual Studio Code, and here I'm gonna create a new request. I will place the URL here with a post method. In the body, I will send the JSON object for creation a new customer. So let's take sample data and paste it here, and I'm gonna send data. And I've got the error indicated by status code 502 bad gateway. The server did not receive a response from an upstream server. Let's go and learn from this error. We have to switch to the Azure portal. Here is our Logic app, and in the run history I'll find a failed run, and the error occurred during the call of the endpoint Logic app. The error type is bad request. So here we see the 400 status code, error code, trigger input schema mismatch. So we've got an error occurred because the data sent to the endpoint Logic app did not conform the JSON schema. I already understand what has happened. I did not specify which data will be sent to the endpoint Logic app. And this must be specified here in the HTTP action. In the body. And I had to select the trigger body to be sent to the endpoint Logic app. Close it. And then I will repeat sending the request. 200. This means that the request has been successfully sent. So let's check the run. The second run was successful. The data was sent to the endpoint Logic app. This is the body. And the endpoint Logic app responded with let's go to see the endpoint Logic app. Today's run. It accepted the data. The data was checked against the JSON schema. And I want to show one thing which I forgotten to show. Even though we have the schema specified here, we need to enable schema validation, and this is done in the settings. Here in the data handling, schema validation switch must be turned on. If we turn it off, regardless of whether we have schema defined in the trigger or not, we will not get any errors. So it must be turned on. And now we are ready to go to the dashboard. And here we can find one successful run. If you click on this tail, you're forwarded to the more detailed information about the Logic App's runs. Here in the list, there is only one Logic App, but in your solution, if you have dozens of Logic Apps, you will get all of them in this list, and this will greatly simplify your monitoring of all your Logic Apps. You can click on the Logic App name, and then the next view is the list of all the runs. So we can see that this run was successful, and the statistical information, information about time, run ID, all you need to find out the Logic App. Next step, I'm going to send a request to the Logic App which will cause the failure. So I'll switch to the Visual Studio Code. And if you remember, I have identified the main attributes of this data as mandatory. So I will rename the personal details attribute to personal info. And I'm sending this, and I get a bad gateway. We'll switch over to the Azure portal. Be aware that update of information from the Log Analytics workspace is delayed by a couple of minutes. Don't expect to see the latest information in the reports from Log Analytics workspace right away. So I'm gonna refresh the view, and the latest run is not here yet. So finally, after the last refresh, I've got the information updated, and you can see here is the failed run. What benefits do you have from this overview of your Logic Apps? First of all, Logic App name. You will identify which Logic App has failed. And then date and time and the run ID. So you take the run ID, and you can use it in the window of run history. So with this, you will quickly get the failed run to the analysis. And this run failed with status code 400, and the error message input body for trigger of type request did not match its schema definition. Error details, required properties are missing from object. Personal details. And if we have a look at the input, personal details is missing, and we've got personal info instead. So this is an expected error which displays how this works, how we can identify the particular failed run and quickly identify the reason for the failure. But this is not all you can have from this Log Analytics Management solution, which will help you work with analysis. We have a tracking ID column here, which can be used to display, in this case, it displays the run ID, but we can place an information which identifies the object which the Logic App has taken for processing. How can we do it? We should go to our Logic App, and in the designer, in the trigger settings, you can find the tracking section. And here in the tracking ID, you can place a path to the attribute which can be used for identification of the data accepted. In my case, it's a customer ID. So be aware to start this with @sign. Then I use the trigger body function of the Logic App, which returns the whole body accepted by the trigger. And from this, I take the customer ID, which will be displayed in the tracking ID column. I save it. And then I want to run another request. It will be 8. And here I return it to details to make a valid request. So I send a request which was accepted and processed. And then I go back to the dashboard and I refresh the screen of the Logic Apps runs. But be aware that statistic in the Log Analytics workspace is updated with a delay. Take a couple of minutes for information update. And after the last update, I can see the last run, successful run here with the customer ID in the tracking ID column instead of run ID. So having this identifier simplifies the work with data analysis dramatically. It's much easier to find out what particular data has failed and to link data together. And moreover, you can filter this column by the tracking ID value. With filtering, you can simply get the row of the run which you are interested in using the identifier of the data which you have set up in your Logic app. Okay, but this is not all you can do. There is another feature which will bring you the particular error information into this view. And this will be displayed in the Track It Properties column. And I will show you how to set this up. We'll go to the Logic app. And this time I'll be working with the HTTP request action. Again, in the settings, scrolling down to the tracking section. Here we can place the path to the attributes which we are interested in, which we want to be shown in the log applications management view. I'm going to start with status code of the HTTP action. Track It property key must have a name. So to work simpler with this in the view, I will give a name customer post status code. And again, add sign in the beginning and then action outputs. This is the function which returns output of the current action. And the current action is the HTTP request. And then the name of the action, the name should be HTTP, and we take the status code. The next will be error message. Using the same syntax, this is the action outputs function of the HTTP action. In this case, I take the body output, and the body will contain error attribute in case of error. So I save this change. And now I want to run one more request, which will be a failed run in this case again. So I make it an invalid data block, send it with expected error. And I switch back to the Azure portal again. I'm going to wait for the information update in the view. After waiting a couple of minutes, I've got the next run which has failed. And here you can see the new customer ID. And the Track It property column has got the view button. When I click this button and the window is extendable, I can find the Track It properties which I have just defined in the HTTP action in the Logic app. So the status code which was returned by the HTTP action and the error message which is taken from the error returned by the HTTP action. So we can find here the full message, error message saying required properties are missing from object, and this was about personal details. So this feature helps us to work mostly from this view, from the Logic Apps management view, and this becomes much more useful and much more efficient to work with. And then finally you use the run ID to go to the logic app and to find this run, along with more details about which data has come to the logic app. Okay. And by the way, this is the view of the runs of the particular logic app. But if we start from the beginning, the first view is our dashboard and how this tile is shown in the dashboard. You will find the number of succeeded and number of failed runs of your logic apps. And here is a summary of all the logic apps in your solution connected to the Log Analytics workspace. If you click on the tile, you'll get a more detailed statistic. So here you will see the list of all your logic apps, along with a statistic about runs, successful, failed, and in the progress running. And these columns are clickable, so you can sort by a particular column, which will help you identify the most failed logic apps. This view displays you types of errors registered in the Log Analytics workspace. So, wrapping up my video, I want to say that with the use of Logic App Management Solution, you may greatly improve your capabilities to monitor the workflows, your Logic Apps. And you should think of the Logic Apps Management Solution as a central command center for your Logic App workflows. It's a pre-built solution available in the Azure Marketplace that leverages Azure Monitor under the hood. It will get you a holistic view of your Logic app's health at a glance. It provides a central dashboard summarizing key metrics and statuses for all your Logic apps. And it also helps you drill down into specific Logic app for detailed run history, error analysis, and performance metrics. Thank you if you were with me to the end of my video. Subscribe to my channel if you didn't do it yet. See you next time with more information about development of integration solutions with use of services in Azure Cloud Platform. Thank you. Goodbye.